Planes. From the mind of John Lasseter himself, this was originally going to be released as a direct-to-DVD film in the fall of 2013. But when they showed a few complete parts to Disney, they decided it was actually good enough to be released in theaters because of its great quality. Oh, I'm sorry, I just couldn't say that with a straight face. I mean, we all know why they made that shift.
There is nothing quite as wonderful as money. There is nothing quite as beautiful as cash.
So with that said, did the crew of the movie had their head in the clouds while making this? Or was that shift made because there was actually more to it? Let's find out. The story. Stop me if you've heard this one. There's this crop dusting plane named Dusty who dreams to be a racer, but everyone doesn't really believe in him because of the kind of plane he is. Suddenly, after a bit of luck, he finds himself in the big race with all the champion planes to race around the world. At that point, there should be a sense of familiarity to the plot, like, oh, I don't know, the last animated film released? I'm not saying that they flat out took their plot, it's just that this kind of story is starting to be recyclable. But is it at least told well? Oh god, no! Even worse than how Turbo did it! Let me explain. In stories like this, there are always parts like meeting the different characters, the training to see how the protagonist improves as the movie progresses, giving us an extra subplot to spice up the story. The list goes on before the big competition at the end of the movie. Here though, they just rush through all that so they can get to the big race at the second half of the movie. No time for subplots, no time for any character development, not even enough time to see Dusty progressively evolve as a racer. And it really suffers afterwards because during the big race, the audience wouldn't really root much for Dusty because the movie didn't give much time for us to know him nor understand what he went through to prepare this. There are times though that in the second half of the film they throw in some quick subplots here and there, but they're all pointless and they're just thrown in so that the race doesn't become too long and boring. You know when something's wrong with the story when they can't even get the basic structure right. The animation. This may be obvious, but as a little reminder that this wasn't made by Pixar themselves. This was actually done by Disney Toon Studios, the ones responsible for almost all the Disney sequels that nobody asked for and all the Tinkerbell movies. And boy does it show. First off, the character design of Cars doesn't really appeal to me that much since it looks more appropriate as a toy than it does for an animated film. But in here, it looks a bit worse because it feels like every single character's eyes are just too close together. That and I feel like they're less detailed than their Pixar counterparts, like they're missing that shine or that feel that they actually are planes. With the character animation, often it looks like they remain motionless with only their eyes and mouths moving. Even with some of the ground vehicles, they don't move around as much as they would in Cars. As for the background animation, even if they move around the world, they don't give us much to look at. I mean, take a look at Cars 2. I know it's considered Pixar's worst film, but to its credit, it does have some nice animation, and with every place they go to, like Japan, Italy, or London, they made the environment so immersive that it feels like I'm actually there. In Planes, though, they didn't even try to get that immersive feeling with each country they go to. However, with all that said, I'm not going to say that the animation's bad. In fact, for what it is, it's pretty good. Sure, they didn't work as hard as Pixar making this, but the quality is quite decent, and many of the flying scenes look pretty nice. Which really helps considering that they take about 90% of the movie, so at least it's enjoyable to look at. The animation is good by itself, but it's pretty clear that it ain't no Pixar. characters. Because of the fact that the movie didn't give itself time for any character development, the characters end up being all not only one-dimensional, but even one-off jokes. This is the case with almost all the side characters, like from the farm where Dusty's from. There's Chug, who's his idiot friend, and Dottie, who's the more realistic one and always tells Dusty to be careful. At the race, some of their one-off joke is regarding their nationality, like El Chupacabra is the Pepe Le Pew style luchador, and Bulldog is the British who doesn't want to show his soft side. Other planes in the race are just used as the basic characters that have nothing else on them, like Rochelle is Chupacabra's love interest, and Ishani is kind of Dusty's, I think, while Ripslinger is the straight-up bad guy defending champion who just wants to win with his henchmen Ned and Zed. And then there's the main character, Dusty, the underdog crop dusting plane who would show the world of what he's capable of despite not being built to race while helping out his friends both old and new. Unfortunately, that's all he is, an underdog hero. The movie doesn't even tell us more about him other than he wants to be a good racer. But then there's Skipper Riley, Dusty's old mentor and the one who teaches him to fly like a racer. He's considered a war legend around his place, who never went up the skies ever since the war. As the movie would progress, it would go deep into his past during his war days and would explain why he never flew. On one hand, he seems like a copy of Doc Hudson from Cars, but he is the most interesting and most developed character of the movie. The characters are very simple and easy to describe, but the problem is, they shouldn't be. What was intended as a direct-to-DVD film should have stayed as a direct-to-DVD film. Planes is just a total lackluster effort of an animated film where, despite some good animation, it cannot pick up from its terrible writing with a disorganized and badly told story and an entire cast of paper-thin characters. The only people I'd recommend this to is the major fans of the Cars franchise, and even at that point, I'd say to just wait until the Blu-ray and DVD comes out. It makes me sad that I have to do this to Disney, but the film earns the AniMat's seal of garbage. Sorry Disney, but this is what happens when you think of the profit more than the quality.